Hey everybody, welcome back. Now, we have already set up all of our default configuration. As you can see here, if you followed along in the startup defaults video, then you will have in front of you something that looks very, very similar to what I have in front of me. But I want to explain to you guys really how the layout works in Blender, because you will notice as you use Blender more and more that you will start to alter the layout to serve you better. And let me first explain to you what we're seeing in front of us right now. And Blender is actually showing us a configuration of different editor types. So for example, in our video editor template or our layout here, we have an editor type that is for file browsing. We have an editor type that is a video sequencer that is set to show the preview in that editor. And we have an editor type that is properties, that is going to show us all of our properties. Then we have another editor type that is a sequencer, only this time it is showing us the actual sequence channels that we're going to throw our video onto and chop it up. So this is very commonly used for doing editing, but we are free to change our layout and add editors or remove editors. And it's important to understand that you are not locked into this configuration, but I will stick to this configuration throughout my video series. And whenever I make a change, I will show you how I make the change. So let me show you some of the things that you can do. As I showed you in the last video, when we set the line width between each of our editor types, if you go to the top corner of any of these editors, you can left click and you can pull inward and it will make a copy of whatever editor type that is. Now, if I'm still holding my left mouse button down, but I can hit escape to undo it. And as you see, I can do this over here too. So I'm going to left click with this crosshair that's popped up. I'm just touching the top corner of this editor type. I'm pulling down and it's making a copy. So you may be wondering, why do I want to make a copy? Well, you pull down this space right here, and then I may say, oh, I want to have a different editor showing right here. So for example, maybe I want to have the dope sheet show here. So now I have my preview and I have my dope sheet showing, and it gives me access to different parts of different features in the program. Now let's say that I want to remove that. I can go right back to the crosshair. I can left click and I can pull up or down, and you'll see this arrow shows, and that means take this space. So if I pull downward into the editor type that I clicked the crosshair from, it will actually make that one come down into it and take the space. And if I go upward, it will take the space of this editor. Let's pull down and we'll remove it. Now it's removed and we are back to what we were. So you can always go to any of these top corners and get the crosshair, and you can pull inward with your left mouse button and it will make a copy. Or you can typically, sometimes it doesn't work depending on where you do it, but you can typically use the crosshair and you can pull outward and it will say take up this space. Now you can't see it very clearly when I pull left, the arrow, but you see it when I pull right. But if I were to pull left, it will actually make the properties window take this space. See, and it took the whole space. Now I'm going to actually add it back by going to this top corner, left clicking, pulling inward into that, pulling to the right, placing it, and then we're going to switch this one back to sequencer. And you notice that when I did sequencer, it actually gave me this view, but the sequencer has three views. It has the preview view, it has the sequencer preview, and it has the preview. We separate out our preview view and our sequencer, so we're just going to set this to preview. And look at that. It has returned to what it was. So you guys can add different editor types, as I showed you, just by using this crosshair to pull inward, or you can make it take up spaces by pulling outward, like that. The other thing that I want to show you guys is that Blender tends to do all of its shortcuts based on where this cursor is hovering. So if I do a shortcut for zooming, for example, which is our home button. If I do it over the preview window and hit my home button, it will zoom that preview. If I do it over the sequencer and hit my home button, it will zoom out as much as it can. And it will do this in most windows. I think that if we actually scroll down, like on the properties, and I hit my home button with the cursor over it, it takes it to the top. So you'll notice that there's some global shortcuts that are completely dependent on where this cursor is. And when you're hovered over a certain editor type, you're going to have shortcuts that will only work in that editor. And we'll go into those things as we start talking about each specific editor type. You have to always be aware where your cursor is hovering when you are trying to do things. So sometimes if I tell you to do something in a video and you hit a shortcut and nothing happens, you'll have to look and see, is my cursor hovering over the correct editor type when I'm pressing that shortcut? So we now know how we can rearrange our editors, the types of editors that we have on the screen. And we know that we need to always use our shortcuts based on where our cursor is overlaying. So that's all I have to talk about today. I'll see you guys in the next video.